had really no urge to attend college or the military, and basically got stuck in my boring hometown for months, where I slowly became dependent on Xanax and booze, and was destined to repeat the cycle of white trash set before me by my parents, and theirs before me. I knew I had to leave town. So I decided to sign up for a website you may have heard of called wwoof.com, Worldwide Opportunities in Organic Farming. You pay a small fee, and they make available a directory of organic farming operations that will feed you and allow you to live with them in return for a certain amount of work around the farm. The place I decided to commit to was a Hare Krishna community in the deep south. I got there, and my car almost immediately broke down. It was a 30-year-old Chevy Blazer I bought on Craigslist for $500. Later on, I was to find out it was beyond repair at this point. The closest town was almost 20 miles away, so I found myself stranded and surrounded by the most unbearable hipsters. To be more specific, I'd say about a third of the population of the community were either first or second generation Indian immigrants, living near the temple for religious reasons. Another demographic were aging hippies, also there for spiritual purposes, but also running the small-scale organic farm located on the property. Everyone else, however, self-absorbed, condescending, right out of college but vapid as shit hipsters. I basically kept to myself, but occasionally was forced into conversations about vibrating crystals and their 3-year spiritual journey, no doubt being funded by their parents. I'd been there for weeks and was desperate for a real conversation. And then Michael showed up. I'd heard stories about Michael. A couple of days before I showed up, he had left to retrieve an impounded car in a large city about an hour away. Everyone said he was lazy, insane, and would spend hours in his room doing yoga instead of coming down and working with the rest of us. He showed up late in the evening, going on about how he was going to really get involved with the farming and throw himself into Krishna conscientiousness. He was in his early 30s. Looked like a balding Hasidic Jew, his unwashed sideburns curled. He spoke like a stoner cartoon character, his sentences punctuated with and like giving his utterly fried brain time to figure out what others wanted to hear. It reminded me of the friends I left back home. We became fast friends, and he was the only person there who didn't give me the urge to bite my fingers off when he spoke. We were both from Texas, so he talked about the loony conservative teachers we had in high school, football, and of course, drugs. Every now and then he brought up subjects that really sort of threw me off. He wasn't able to get his car out of the impound garage, so he schemed the best way to break it out. These plans involved firearms, pipe bombs, and telepathy. He told me he came to the Hare Krishna temple to befriend some of the gurus and learn Reiki meditation, a form of meditation used to control the minds and bodies of other people. He told me he believed he had used Reiki once to seduce a woman at a party. This is when I understood his reputation. I simply nodded and laughed occasionally when he went off on these rants. I knew one day I would reach a saturation point for this absurdity, but I could probably endure a week more. A couple of days later, we were eating lunch with one of the gurus. I was telling Michael about my trip to the giant field where the Branch Davidians used to be. He wasn't sure what the Branch Davidian was, so I explained to him about Waco, David Koresh, and the botched siege by the FBI and ATF that led to the deaths of 76 Davidians and 4 ATF agents. He was enraged. The government is always trying to silence people preaching the truth. That's so fucked up. I wanted to explain to him that David Koresh was a sociopathic cult leader, interested in power and nothing else. But he wasn't having any of it. Now I was angry. He was having a tantrum about a subject, and I had just explained to him. And now he's telling me I'm wrong, and that Koresh was a martyr. This is when I saw the truly insane Michael. He was spitting, red as a beet, pacing back and forth. I left the table and got back to work, but he followed me. After half an hour of his absurd argument, I couldn't handle it anymore. I'm not having this conversation with a fucking loon, Michael. How can I expect logic from you? You came here to get superpowers. The look in his eyes changed from anger to hatred. He got real still and went at me. Michael was a big guy, much bigger than me. He lunged at me and I ran. As I ran, I went through my pocket praying that I grabbed my knife before I left my cabin. I know it sounds ridiculous, but you don't walk my old neighborhood without some sort of protection. Plus, it was a pretty useful tool on the farm. Luckily, I had grabbed it and turned around so he saw it. He stopped and contemplated for 3 seconds. He quickly turned around and finished his lunch. The next day, I pulled the temple president aside and explained what happened, and that we had to get rid of him. It didn't take much convincing. No one really cared for him, and he wasn't much help on the farm. I felt bad snitching on the guy. He was in a pretty desperate situation. He had no car, no money, and I can't imagine he had many friends. The temple president also informed me that he had been an alcoholic for 10 years and had come here to get sober. I found it very strange that he had never told me this. Later that day, I saw through my window someone drive up and hand him several suitcases to pack what little he had, and I saw them both drive off to God knows where. Weeks went by, and the whole encounter kinda faded from my conscience. Late one night, I got a text. "Hey, this is Michael. You can get my car out for $280. Wanna go traveling?" I never responded. I wasn't sure how he got my number, but I figured he looked me up on Facebook or something. A few nights later, I was in the temple office, using the Wi-Fi to make some emails. I was making my way back to my cabin, and from the pitch black, I hear a loud banging coming from a barn. I remember thinking it must be an animal, but also thinking it must be a pretty big one to make that much noise. I entered my cabin. The actual door to the cabin doesn't have a lock, but my bedroom did, so I used that one. I was pretty unsettled by the banging, but I figured my imagination was getting the best of me. Later that night, I woke up needing to take a piss. The cabin didn't have a bathroom, but we had a shared outhouse. I didn't feel like putting on shoes and walking around in the dark, so I figured I'd just piss in the sink. I know, it's gross, but I'm the only one who uses that kitchen. I opened my bedroom door and nearly pissed myself right there. Michael, completely naked, was crouching in a corner of my kitchen, facing the wall. I made a noise I wasn't aware I could make. Something you would only hear Shaggy make on Scooby-Doo. The noise alerted Michael to my entrance. All he did was stare at me and shook his whole body. I slammed my door and locked it almost immediately. I knew what he was trying to do. He was trying to pacify me with Reiki meditation. I called 911. I didn't open my door or even approach it until I saw the red and blue lights outside my window. Michael wasn't there when they arrived. My guess is he ran deep into the woods that surrounded the farm. I explained me and Michael's history and what had happened that night. There wasn't much they could do since no one seemed to know anything about Michael. I didn't even know his last name. I had to leave the farm shortly after. Calling the police was really frowned upon since I believe many of the old hippies thought they were still avoiding the draft. I didn't mind leaving either. I couldn't sleep knowing Michael might be out in those woods, angrier than he was before. I stayed up almost 3 days while I waited for my friend to come pick me up. 2. I am a 15-year-old straight male. I live in Germany, but I come from a small European country. This event had happened before my removal to Germany. In my country, we have field trips, usually at the end of 8th grade, that last for a week or so. Now I've had my fair share of stalkers, but nothing like this. It was September in 2014, and I went to a field trip to an island with my class. I was 14 at the time. There was this girl, Jane. Jane used to be a normal girl up until that point. She was always kind of shy and really kept to herself, but everyone liked her. She was never bullied or anything. Just a normal shy girl. We used to chat on Facebook a little bit, but nothing serious. I never really harbored any feelings toward her, neither in her favor nor against her. So back to the field trip. I smoked a couple of cigarettes with my mates in our hotel room, and then went outside. The teacher wanted to show us some plants that were specific for that area. Now, I've noticed that Jane was talking to me more often than before, and that she had walked very near me. But I thought that was merely a coincidence. I didn't make a fuss about it. But as time went by, the things had started to get worse. She started touching me, hugging me, and following me, respectively. On the 3rd day, we went on a cruise to a nearby island, and during the cruise, she was sitting next to me. She had a camera and was taking pictures of me. I've had zero sense of restraint at that point, since I was young and didn't think much of it. I've noticed that she was taking a suspicious amount of photos, mostly of me, and I told her to calm down. Then she talked to me for an hour, but she didn't say anything interesting. She was mimicking the Irish and British accents to me, basically blabbering about stuff for approximately an hour. I was just smiling and replying with, "That's nice." In the following days, she had started to hug me and make me feel uncomfortable. So one day I came to her and told her that we needed to talk in private. We went to the woods and I asked her if she was in love with me. She denied and kept saying that there had been a misunderstanding, but I knew there was something off about her. Then she told me her life story. She said that her mother is a schizophrenic and that she's severely depressed about it. I felt sorry for her, but I still told her that the touching was inappropriate. During our conversation, my mates wondered where I am and organized a searching party for me. They found us eventually, but she had decided to stay behind and let me go. I have no idea what she was doing after I left. On one occasion, I'm a little fuzzy on the details, sorry. She came into our hotel room asking for water, as if there wasn't any water in her own room. However, when she got the requested water, she refused to leave the room. We got rid of her by telling her that we're going out to have some fun. The next day, the harassing got even worse. She would follow me around and hug me again. The peak of her abnormal behavior happened this evening. I took a walk with a friend of mine and turned around, briefly, only to see her behind us. She was following us, I kid you not. I have never felt this kind of dread in my whole life. We have made our way down the shore and hid behind a big rock next to a police station. We should go inside and tell the police we have a stalker, my friend joked. Anyway, she couldn't find us and gave up finally. My best friend heard the story and went to her room to tell her to fuck off. I was infuriated with him because it was rude of him, regardless of her actions. I'm usually not meek, but I thought that was horrible. Now I see that no matter how cruel that was, it was the right thing to do. I went to her room and apologized for my friend's actions. She was in her bed sobbing uncontrollably, and I calmed her down and went outside. A female friend of mine, Sarah, had invited me to come to her room so we could discuss something. I made my way to her room and saw 2 other girls there. We sat on the chairs in her balcony, and she had told me that Jane is a very depressed person who had done some self-harming in the past. I was shocked when I heard about that. So amidst our conversation, I winced. I raised my look and saw Jane maybe 50 meters, 165 feet away, just sitting on a rock, listening to music, and staring at me. She had a solemn look in her eyes. I've suddenly felt dismay and told my friends that we have a spectator. They winced too, and we've decided to pry on her a little bit before backing out to the bedroom. Just stay away from her was the last thing Sarah told me before I left. To my luck, it was the end of our field trip and I finally got some rest. Weird encounters with her became fewer and fewer because she was often absent from school. Later I found out she had overdosed on sleeping pills a couple of times, but survived all of them. There was even a rumor that she had ended up in a psychiatric institution, but I have no proof of that, so I can't tell you that correctly. Anyway, the point of this story is that sometimes you have to be rude, so you could prevent something like this happening to you. It may seem cruel or even hurt the other person, but in the end, it's your life. And you have to stand up for yourself and make sure that you're happy. 3. So it was evening, about 7 p.m., and I was playing Assassin's Creed 3. My dad was at work, so I was at home with my mom. My mom came to my room and told me that she is going to walk our dog. I continued to play the game for about another 30 minutes, when my mom unlocked the doors and just left them opened. I was still playing, but I heard that she is talking to someone. I wasn't paying attention to it, so I just continued to play. Then she called my name, so I paused the game, and I got to see what she wants. She was talking with her neighbor. I asked her, "What's up?" I don't remember exactly, but he was asking about something to my mom. And so she asked if I know anything about it. I don't remember what he or she asked, so I don't want to lie. So I decided to look at my neighbor's hand and my heart stopped beating. He was holding a long knife in his hand. He was asking something and I told him that I'm going on the internet to find out. I told my mother to come with me and grabbed my little dog. I quickly closed the doors and locked them twice. I asked her why the hell she didn't come outside when she saw he was holding a knife. She told me that she was scared and wasn't thinking straight, so she called me. I stayed behind the doors and watched through the eyelet what he was doing. He stood right in front of our doors and just kept watching them. He was still waiting to get his answer on whatever he was asking. I told my mom to go to the kitchen and grab a knife in case things get worse. And they do. He started to scream that he will kill us and that we are fucking Hungarians. Even though we are not. It was that kind of rage scream, and I knew that if he would break in, he would kill us. He started to thump on our doors. I quickly grabbed my phone and called 911. Meanwhile, police arrived. He calmed down and stopped screaming and smashing on our doors. So I got to my room and waited. Unfortunately, when the police came, he was already gone. And he wasn't at his home. They told us they would be looking for him. A few hours later, we get the call that they found him. Then there was about 1 week when he was in the mental hospital. He had schizophrenia, but he was taking medication which was helping him since I remember him as a nice neighbor. But when he started to drink alcohol with his medication, he started to be crazy. About a month passed, then later at night, some light woke me up. It was the fire truck beacon which woke me up. I opened my window and pushed out my head and aimed on the fire truck. That ladder was going into our neighbor's window. Firemen get to his apartment through the window. I don't know what was going on, but I knew that the crazy neighbor had to do something again. I started to hear some voices on the outside of the main doors. I looked through the eyelet, and there were 2 officers with my second neighbor, which lived in the opposite of our doors. That crazy neighbor lived on the side wall apartment. I opened the doors and asked what was going on. They told me that my crazy neighbor jumped out from his window to the second neighbor's balcony. It gave that what the fuck feeling because we live on a 6th floor. I couldn't imagine how he did that because it had to be really hard. And so he jumped to her balcony and she had it open because it was hot. He came to her apartment and stayed right behind her head. She was sleeping, but she woke up on a strange feeling. Then she called the cops. And you know what happened after she called them. Again, he was taken to the mental hospital. He couldn't go to jail because he was mentally ill. After that incident, his girlfriend kicked him out of the apartment, since it wasn't his apartment, but his girlfriend's. But she was working in another city, so he lived there. But when he came back from the hospital, he was practically homeless. So he was sleeping on the stairs in our flat. I was so scared to go home from school. I was scared that he would wait there and attack me. So we told him that if we would see him in our flat again, we will call the cops. And that was the last time I saw him. But before all that happened, there were some incidents with him. For example, he called the cops that someone was going to rob him. He was obviously hallucinating because he told the cops that he saw the guys putting a ladder at his windows, and they were climbing up. Remember that we live on the 6th floor. It was a really bad experience, and I don't want to go through anything like that. Let's not meet again.